Scripts are dumb. That's my hot take. Scripts are dumb. Everybody who sells scripts are dumb. Everybody who wants scripts are dumb. Scripts are dumb. So that's actually wrong. Come to find out. For the longest time, I held this position that scripts were dumb. And that, and it's constantly something. It's a question that gets brought up a lot. If people want scripts, they want to be told exactly what to say and when to say what and all these different things. And I was always really frustrated for the longest time at that, because it's like, dude, take some, dare I say, ownership of your sales. And there's not some kind of just magical incantation that if you say these words in this order, like somebody's going to say yes to you, right? Now, let me take a moment and just say, well, to a certain degree, yeah, there are some things that we have found over time where, yes, if you say these words in these orders with this inflection in it, there is a really good chance that somebody's going to say yes to you. But here's the thing. Scripts aren't dumb. The way that the script has been presented for so long is dumb. And the fact that educators haven't really set you up for success in the scripting process also is dumb, because it's not a spell. It's not a spell. It's not a magic. You don't say like, and if you are going to sell to me for the cheapest that you can. And then all of a sudden that they sell for the cheapest that they can. That's not how a script works. However, the way that it does work is you have to understand what it is about you that gets people to say yes. You have to understand not only what it is about you, but what is it about your salesperson, right? For those of you who may want to have a staff in the not too distant future of salespeople who are buying houses for you, selling houses for you, doing some of these things that you need to get done for you, if you are going to be in that position, that means that you need to understand how scripts work. So, on all of that, it says, or the thing that I want you to understand is you have to know thyself. Know thyself is the most important part of sales and business and everything that you're going to be dealing with. You have to know what it is about you. Know what it is about your salespeople that brings success, okay? A script is a starting point. A script is a somewhat proven, hopefully very proven, side of this has converted. But the reason why it doesn't convert for you the same way that it converts for them is that you may pitch differently than them. You may come off differently than whoever built that script, and that's okay. That's actually good, right? For the longest time, that's why I refused to give scripts. That's why I refused to create scripts, is because I was like, no, like you're going to come off differently than I do. I buy houses completely differently than my partner Ronnie buys houses. And guess what? Both of us have incredible conversion rates. But he takes much more of a consultative approach, much more of a ask a ton of questions and allow them to come up with the answer that you need them to come up with. As Chris Voss put it, sales or negotiations is the art of having or of allowing somebody else to have your way, right? And I like that definition of it. Whereas on the other side, my sales approach is very authoritative. Very, let me tell you how this is going to work. Let me tell you why I'm the best there is and why you're going to sell your house to me. I speak in definitives from the very beginning. Hey, we're going to buy your house. Today we're going to contract this deal. Once we contract it, this is what it's going to look like. Imagine your life after we've worked together. Everybody else is dumb. I'm good. So if we were to have a script, even as we have built scripts out, Ronnie and myself, we're going to have different approaches to certain things. So here's what you need to understand about scripting that I don't think that the educators have really set you up for success in the past on, is that it's all based in psychology. Sales is psychology, period, right? You have to understand the skeletal construction of a sales situation, both from the psychological viewpoint of your counterpart and from the outlook of, hey, you're going to have a general what's the word I'm looking for? Like not script, but a general skeleton of what you want things to look like. Here's an example of what I mean by that. When I was in high school, I used to get marks taken off of my scores all the time in math because I wouldn't write out all of my work. But I would get really frustrated because I will have written out, there's like this part of the problem, and then I would write this number that you would only get by doing the things in between it, and then I would write this number that you would only get by doing that, and then I would come up with a solution, and there we would go. And I would get the right answer, and I get something taken off because I didn't write that. And I would tell the teacher, look, that's like telling me that you watch a car go into a tunnel, you've got a little window in the middle of the tunnel where you see the car go past it, and then the car comes out at the end of the tunnel, and you're saying the car didn't go through the tunnel. Sales can be much the same way. Sales can be much the same way in the way that you're going to have this like, hey, I need the car to go into the tunnel. I need to hit this window spot and I need to get out of the tunnel. But what happens in between there is totally up to you. We have these waypoints in a sales situation that are triggers to move on to that next section. So there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all script. However, we've worked on some scripts here that, dare I say, are phenomenal because, they work. I see them convert with our staff. I see them convert with people who use these words in these order and these things. But I only see them convert best when somebody inherits that into their organization and says, okay, I see exactly why Grant says this thing in that way, but that doesn't fit my style. So I'm going to say it in this way. But I'm understanding the Latin behind these words, right? That's what I mean by the psychology of it, is that sales is psychology and different people speak different languages. So you have to understand the core of language. You have to understand that, yes, Spanish and English, both are different languages. And if you speak Spanish to somebody who speaks English, they're not going to know what's going on, but both were based in Latin. So if you truly understand Latin and like say you speak Latin and you speak Spanish, you're probably going to have a better chance of understanding somebody who's speaking English because you can understand the core of what they're saying because you understand Latin. So we have a question pop in from Carl here. Good question, right? Do you think a disc analysis would help a person know how to approach their script? And I love that you asked that because that's actually very on point for some of what I wanted to talk about today. For those of you who are in the Creative Cashflow Academy, there are a couple of modules in there. There is a module, an exclusive module on negotiations. There's an exclusive module on like the rules of thumb and that kind of stuff. But the negotiations one is an important one because I want you to understand the whole core of what it starts off with. That negotiations module is the psychology of sales. Now, it's based largely in what I consider to be the Bible of sales psychology, which is a book called Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. It is by Dr. Robert Cialdini, which I think is how you say his name. And it'll change your world when it comes to sales because it teaches the true Latin of sales. But further than that, Carl hits on a really good point, the disc analysis, the personality analysis. How do you assess? Right? Okay, so Grant says scripts don't work for everybody and you got to know yourself. How do you know yourself? How do you know what kind of sales is going to work for you versus what somebody else works or what works for somebody else? And what is it that I need to be looking out for? Okay, so these are the questions that were the core of a conversation that I had with the wonderful Miss Christina Kraus, who I just, as I say over and over again, I just have the highest, most tremendous amount of respect for. She is a phenomenal saleswoman. She knows marketing like the back of her hand. She runs the marketing for probably 50 of the top 100 investors in the nation. And she just knows how to sell, right? And we were having this conversation about scripts, which, by the way, it is through her that prompted us to create these scripts. And you can go to pimarketinghub.com and get a copy of these scripts that we've created. So I encourage you to check that out. And I think that they're still on sale. I hope they're still on sale. I don't know. She did a Black Friday sale on these. We just released it for Black Friday. So you can go check there and see if it's still on sale or not for Black Friday. Otherwise, it's still going to be highly worth it because you get the script and you do get a full-blown 30, 40-minute video of me teaching kind of the psychology behind these things, right? There's going to be some similarities here. There's going to be some more diving in. I also want to say I don't make any money from that. I'm just it's something that we want to put out in front of you guys. So Grant says, hey, we've got these scripts and they don't work for everybody. You got to know the psychology of yourself. You got to know the psychology of the person on the other side of the table. The DISC analysis is incredibly prevalent, I guess would be the word. Like a lot of people know the DISC profile analysis. A lot of people have heard of it. Here's where I think DISC fails us in a sales situation. Here's where I think most personality tests fail us in a sales situation. Right, so if I look up the DISC profile, and I probably should know this off the top of my head, but I don't use the DISC profile. So I'm going to say, let me see, DISC profile, what's the word I'm looking for, when it ends up, results. One of the things that I don't like about every personality test is they have things in here that tell you things like, and I'm going to see if I see it really quickly. No, I don't see it really quickly. Some of the results are, how does this person react in leadership when they are stressed versus how they react in leadership versus when they are in their comfort zone? You know, how does somebody think about, for instance, their social, the I is influence. What is their social side, their talkative and liveliness, that kind of thing. Those don't matter in sales. It just doesn't matter. What matters in sales is getting to yes. So the only part of this person's personality that you need to understand is what influences them to make a decision. And the popular personality tests are giving you all of this information that you need to know about this person, of how they handle this situation, how they handle this situation, how they handle this situation. I don't care about that. That's a huge map that's really good to know this person, maybe if they were going to be part of your staff, maybe if you're going to be working with them as a partner. But if you're in a sales situation, you've got a you are here dot on that map. You are here is they want to sell you a house and you want to buy a house. You are here is you want to sell a house and they want to buy a house. You need to get to yes. You are here is they want to, get their money in backed by real estate and you need private lending. It does not matter what their leadership style is when they're stressed. Therefore, we've developed our own kind of personality test. Now, this may come from someplace at its core. I've looked it up. I don't think it does. I actually learned this from, and I wish I could remember his name because I just can't, but I went to a mortgage broker's class, of all things, many years ago. And in passing, he brought up this theory of head, heart, and gut. And those of you who've been following me for a while, you've probably seen me talk head, heart, or gut. As a matter of fact, I think there's a head, heart, or gut Grant Teach Me Something episode where I go through those things. And this has been, in my opinion, the greatest evolution of sales personality testing on the market. He said this in passing, hey, people are going to make their decisions on their head, heart, and gut. They need to know, they need to feel, they just kind of go along with it sort of thing. But that kind of stuck in my head, and I started unpacking it. And over the next few years, we developed a really legit, hey man, this is how you look at a sales situation. This is how you look at a script. Because everything in sales is psychology, and everything in sales is getting to yes. Am I right? So when you have a script, you need to get to yes. To know thyself, you need to get to yes. To know them, you need to get to yes. How do you know what their language is? How do you know what your language is? And it's head, heart, and gut. That's what I boil it down to. So you got to look at things in three ways. Either people need all the information. They are a numbers person, a detail person. They need to know all of the percentages and numbers that you can possibly feed them. You're going to just throw every number you possibly can at them, and they will choose the numbers and details that they need from that to make the decisions that they need to make forward. That's a head person. A heart person needs to feel good about the situation, okay? A heart person needs to imagine themselves visually as having, as working with you. They are a very visual sales approach. In other words, and this is the example actually that got me started on all of this from that mortgage broker is, right? He was saying a heart person, you're going to sell a heart person a house by going in and saying, look at this house, it's beautiful. Can you imagine a Christmas tree over there? How wonderful it would feel, because you can have a whole bunch of people sitting in here around a Christmas tree opening presents, and this hallway is so long, you're going to hear the kids pitter-patter up to your door when they're waking you up in the morning. That is what a heart person needs to know. That was very sassy of me. That's what a heart person needs to know. A head person needs to know, hey, look, I ran the comps on this house, and this house should be selling for $225, and we're getting it at $220. And I'm actually even willing to knock off another $3,000 on that because it's the first house we're looking at. So you're in at 4% less or whatever it is than anybody else is going to be getting this property. And from all the data that it looks like, this is a highly appreciating area that I think that we've got another 4 years of appreciation on. So you'll probably get $100,000 worth of equity in this next 3 years. That's going to make a head person buy it. Okay? See what I'm saying? It's a completely different pitch. It's the same product. The product doesn't matter. What matters is speaking the language that your seller needs to hear. What matters is speaking the language that your buyer needs to hear. What matters is respecting the person that you are talking to enough to learn what they need to hear and speak their language to them. Right? Matt brings up, I would say the best thing in sales is listening. And you're absolutely right. And I wish I could steal this, and maybe I will end up stealing this as long as I give them credit. I got to talk to my IP attorneys and let me know if I can with credit given. But when I worked for Apple, obviously Apple is their sales is incredible. And I learned a ton from working at Apple. I worked in the Apple store back before the iPhone. I was actually at the iPhone launch. We were one of the first stores in the nation, so we were one of the first stores to get the iPhone. So we had, the lines that were making the news, all that kind of stuff. It was a fun time. But they had a phenomenal sales training. Now, before the iPhone came out, you really had to know some stuff to work at Apple. After the iPhone came out, it became basically like T-Mobile because they were too busy to be picky about who they could hire. But they taught a lot on how to. The 3 L's of sales was one of the big takeaways I got from Apple. You listen, learn, and lead. Okay, and I still remember that. That was a job I had. That was my first job, right? Listen, learn, and lead. I love that order because you listen to them, you learn what they need, and then you lead them into the direction that they need to go. What I think that a lot of people fail to realize is many folks, when looking at a sales situation, cannot separate themselves from a feeling of manipulation. And let me tell you what, guys, if you are an ethical person and you are good at sales, you are going to struggle with the ethics of how good at sales you are. You should, right? Because you should never manipulate somebody. You should only respect them enough to listen to what they need to know and how they need to feel good about getting a sale done and feeding that information to them. If that's different than how you would make a decision, so be it. Because you're respecting them enough to speak their language. Many people feel manipulative when they feel that a decision should be made one way and they present the decision in a different way. To them, that feels manipulative. That triggers that ooh, I feel kind of gross doing that. And let me give you an example of this. We haven't talked about gut yet, but let's talk head or heart, right? So I want to know where you guys are. Matt says that he's 100% a head guy. I'm a head guy. Everybody has a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary decision center. You make your decisions with all 3 of them. It's kind of a percentage thing. It's a matter of which decision centers matter most to saying yes for you. Okay? So for me, I'm head, and I'm gut, and I'm essentially heartless. I will not make a decision because you tell me to imagine my life with this decision being made. I will not make a decision. If you're trying to be in a sales situation with me and you start telling me what this can do for my family, I'm hanging up the phone. I'm done with it. It's so gross because let me decide what's going to be good for my family, right? I am driven by my heart in the way that I have love and desire to do this job for family and for community, to be able to give back in those ways. But that's not how I'm making decisions because the decisions have to make business sense to me. So it's I'm 80% head, 20% gut, and 0 heart essentially in decision-making processes. But you can get my heart every so once in a while. So maybe it's 1 or 2% in heart. But let me give you an example, right? This is how you're going to know thyself. Actually, before I do that, I am going to explain gut. A gut person is typically very lively. A gut person is just going to make the decisions and go with it. They present usually as ADD. They are going to present as head or heart. They're going to ask questions about head stuff. They're going to give you stuff that indicates that they're a heart person, but they quickly glaze over when you give them the answers and they kind of move on, right? How many of you that was especially sassy. You got the double snap out of me that time. How many of you have run into this situation? I'd actually like to know. Drop the comment below. How many of you have been in a sales situation where you go into the sales situation and they ask you a question and they're like, well, I don't like the number 80. Why are you trying to give me the number 80? And you're like, well, look, if I run the comps, we've got a $100,000 value on this property, and you're actually really in a good spot because you have zero rehab that needs to get done for this. So I come to 80 because that's the high. And then they ask you another question, and you're like stressed for the next 15 minutes because you're like, I didn't answer their question, and they asked a question that's very important to get answered. And so like for the next 15 minutes, you're like trying desperately to pull the conversation back somehow to where you can finish answering these questions. And that like happens a couple of times, and it's very stressful, right? Raise your digital hand, shoot a like or a comment if you've had that happen to you. Well, the reason why that's happening more than likely is that they are a gut person. Gut people will ask a question like, where'd you get those numbers? Gut people will talk about things that have to do with heart. And again, how are you going to identify these people? I'll talk about that here in a second. But heart people are going to talk about their family at some point in time. They will bring up their family probably multiple times. So they're going to go live with their sister. They've got a cousin that lives with them. They were talking with their mom about this situation. That's a heart person. But then they could become quickly disinterested in the answer and they start kind of moving on. You're stressing out. Here's the thing. A gut person doesn't need to know the answer. They don't care what the answer is. They care that you have an answer. Very big. A gut person does not care what the answer is. They care that you have an answer. Because that's good enough for them. If you've done a good enough job with rapport and building rapport with this person, they don't care what the answer is. But the fact that you've answered so confidently shows them that you have an answer, and it checks it off on their book because they don't need to know all the details. They don't need to visualize what's going on. They just need to know that that stuff exists. Then they can feel good with the situation and move forward with it. Is that an aha moment for anybody? Does that make sense to you? So let's talk about this, okay? I'm going to give you a really good example for you to figure out who you are. And then I'm going to tie that back around into the scripting issue, okay? Because I know this may seem a little bit off, but it's not. It is 1,000% the most important part of knowing how to do scripts well. So the last time you made a big purchase, what was that? And I'm going to imagine that it was your last car, okay? And so even with that being said, what I want to ask you to do is go ahead and just think about the last time you purchased a vehicle. When you purchased that vehicle, and I want to see your comments come in on this. I'm very interested in this. When you purchased that vehicle, did you spend weeks or months researching the best, sedan that has the most cubic inches of interior space, that has the least amount of lifetime maintenance cost, that gets the best miles per gallon, that still fits in your category? What color is best to wash so I don't have to wash it? You see what I'm saying? Like, you're going to all these details, and then when you pulled the trigger, it's because, well, right now there's a deal going on this one where I can get $4,000 off on it. I really want a white one, so I found a white one. It's a little bit cheaper, and I know that I can get a good interest rate right now on it, and the APRs are going to be going up in the next 6 months, so I'm going to buy now. Okay. Did you have to go test drive a bunch of different cars? You might not have known exactly the style of car that you wanted. You might have known the style of car you wanted as far as like, hey, I want a sedan or a truck or this or that. You go in, and you had boiled it down to like 5 different vehicles that you really liked. And you didn't care so much. I mean, obviously you've got a budget, but you didn't care so much about the property that came in. But what you cared about is driving those vehicles. You weren't going to make a decision until you got in it, you turned the key, you drove around, and you test drove all 4 or 5, and maybe you got 3 in, and as you're getting onto the freeway, you're like, yep, this one's the one. I'm buying this puppy. This is awesome. I love how this feels. That's a heart person. You're imagining when you're driving this thing, oh my gosh, I can't wait to show my significant other. Man, my kid is going to fit perfectly back here, and I'm going to pull up to my date and it's going to look so awesome. I can't wait to feel this sunroof back and have the wind coming inside, and that's a heart person. A gut person, you're driving around one day. And the other side on the heart person is you either loved your last vehicle and drove it into the ground and had to buy a new car, or you hated your last vehicle and could not wait to get another one, and you were so glad when you finally had the budget to do it. The gut person is probably driving around one day. It's a nice day outside. You just got paid something significant, and you just kind of have the idea hit you. Dude, I could get a new car. You're driving by a dealership. You're like, man, I've always really liked those cars, and nothing says I can't do that right now. I'm gonna do that. And you had a new vehicle within the next 3 weeks, right? It's you kind of had that idea pop up. What? Hold on, I could do this. And you had a new car. You walked into the dealership. You didn't really care. You got, you liked the sales guy, most likely. You really got along with him well. And you just said, screw it, let's do this. Okay, I want to know which one you fall into. And keep in mind, guys, you're going to have a primary, secondary, and a tertiary. So you're going to probably fall into multiple categories. But the reason why I go into the car example specifically is that's a big expense. And that's a really good because typically one of those is going to be a prevailing reason as to why you purchase. So let me know, are you head, heart, or gut based on that, okay? So Ed says, I used to think I was a head guy, but I'm gut AF. Yes, that happens very commonly. Because again, like I said, gut people present as head or heart. Gut people ask the questions to feed their head or their heart. And here's the thing, and I like that Ed says this, right? Because the primary and secondary are very often very close to each other. And you kind of have to think of it like your gut, in Ed's example, is really the decision center, and your head is the guard. Your head is the knight that's standing at the door with a sword and shield. And as long as you get enough information for the knight to pass by, you give that knight, and that might be just a secret password, or it might be, hey, I'm this door guard, and I think that there's something fishy here. So you better prove to me that you belong in the castle before I let you in. Right? Doesn't matter how much information there is, but they guard that, and they're like, okay, go ahead. And then the gut inside the castle gets to make that decision, right? You are a gut decision maker, but your head and gut, if you've got to have just enough information, it might be a password, it might be a full-blown thesaurus of words to let them past it. So let me know, are you a head, a heart, or a gut person based on the car thing? So we got at least one gut there. We got one head here. So now what you need to do is you need to apply that knowledge, understanding that you make decisions based on one of those three factors. The other thing that I don't like about the DISC profile and the other personality tests is it's very hard to do a personality test in the field. It's very hard to do a DISC profile in the field and be accurate at it, because you might be really accurate at this one section of it, this one segment that lets you know if they're going to, prefer to lead with authority in times of stress. But that doesn't matter. What matters is how to get to yes. Head, heart, and gut gets to yes. So, why is it so important? If you know that you are a head person or a gut person or a heart person, that is the sales pitch you're going to fall back on when you start to have a situation where you're a little bit stressed, you're trying to get through to somebody. Here's the next question I want to ask you. Those of you who've been buying houses and been in sales situations, how many times have you gone into a house or a sales situation? You've been like, man, I freaking killed that pitch. I have no idea why they didn't sell it to me. Like everything seemed great. I killed it, but I still didn't get to yes. And you're beating yourself up and you're like, I've done the best I can. I'm just not a good salesperson. Here's the deal. What most likely happened is you are a head person, and so you started feeding them all the numbers. You gave them a great pitch that sounded great to your decision center, but you didn't respect them enough to figure out why they make decisions, and maybe they're a heart person. So your pitch was incredible for yourself, but it wasn't incredible for them. You didn't speak their language. That's what scripts are all too often. All too often, you pay for some script from some info marketer who just knows that they can, charge you $100 or $500 for this script, and you'll pay it, and then you'll feel bad about yourself because clearly it's a good working script. So if it doesn't work for you, it's your fault, and they don't have to have any skin off their back. But they don't take the time to tell you, nah, man, this isn't going to work for everybody. You need to know how you influence people. You need to know how people are influenced. And then you need to apply these pieces of words and dissect why we're saying these things at this time and apply them to your style and to their listening style. That's the magic of the script. The script is this baseline timeline. The script is this proven process that works in hopefully most situations. But if you're going to get really good at buying and selling, you're going to have to know how it works in every situation. And to do that, you got to know how to explode out this information and dissect, oh, I get it. See, the reason he's saying that is because that's really something that's going to apply to a head person. How can I get that same kind of pitch done to somebody with a heart or with a gut decision center, right? So you're going to fall back in your negotiations to whichever decision center is your primary. You need to pay attention to what your seller is asking for or your buyer is asking for. They are going to, as a head person, ask for a bunch of numbers and details. It'll always come back to the numbers. As a heart person, they're going to bring up their family. They're going to use visual language. They're going to imagine themselves in situations. They're going to sometimes even refer to the house or objects as animate, right? Like, she's been really good to me, but I got to move on. I can't afford it anymore. And a gut person, again, they're very lively. They are typically the life of the party. They're very gregarious, easy to get along with. They move topics very quickly. They're kind of ADD. They ask questions. They glaze over quickly. Understand that so you can speak to them. Now, let's look at the script itself. When you read a script, follow the script to start with, okay? This is the best process to do. When you get a script from somebody, it is in theory, if you trust that person's sales ability, a script that has led them to getting many yeses. All right? Ideally, you'll know who wrote that script and what kind of sales strategy or what kind of sales style they have. So you can hopefully, ideally, identify that style within the script. Not always, but sometimes. And then know how you're going to have to change that for yourself. Read through the script, and when you start it, have your first 10 or 20 phone calls using that script as verbatim as you can. And then you start looking for sections of the script that you're going to change to be more your style until you see consistent results of a yes. So follow the psychology that script gives you and see if you can twist that up. I'm going to make this into a GIF of me dancing. Follow that script and twist those words up into the psychology that works for you and that works for the person on the other side, and see if you can find consistent results in that where you're getting to a yes. Here's something that I like to call blue ink words. This goes back to, again, my days at Apple, right? At Apple, I was selling computers. I got hired at Apple because I knew music production. I came from I worked at a recording studio for a long time. I played in bands my whole life. I got hired at Apple because I used high-end recording studio equipment in high-end studios. I actually worked on gold albums. Very little work. I did the audio or the auto tuning on one track but whatever. That was why I got my job. So I talked to prosumers and pro-consumer and professional buyers and consumers for that, on the computer side. But we had 3 computers to sell. We had an iMac, a laptop, and a tower at that time. So I relied on my theater background because I did theater my whole life as well. My ability to say the same thing in the same way every time, making it sound like it's new, because guess what? When you're doing a performance of a play, you might do 9 performances. It's got to sound like the same thing every time with same emotions, right? So I relied on that. I would say the same scripts every time, always. But I would change one little thing here and there in my pitch. And I call these blue ink words because the first enlightenment to, I need to focus to this when I was in sales, because I spent all day selling the same 3 things. So I just would experiment. Was I realized I could write the quote. Part of my sales pitch was I would write down what we were doing and all that kind of stuff. If I wrote it in black ink, if I wrote it in red ink, if I wrote it in green ink, and if I wrote it in blue ink. And guess what? My conversion rate was best with blue ink quotes. So I call these things blue ink words. What is the one thing that you're going to change up in your pitch to find the highest converting possibility within this boundary? And then you keep that, because guess what? From that point on, I only used blue ink pens. From this point on, once you find that, you're only going to need to use these blue ink words. So start with the script and then apply blue ink words to it to see what's going to work best for you, understanding this works best for somebody. Now, these scripts that I wrote that you're going to get from the PI Marketing Hub, or if you're an executive or an accelerator, you get those for free as well. So those of you who are in my mastermind, I haven't yet put it up in your portal, but you can ask it from me. I'll send it to you. Like Manuel, I see you on here. I can give you these scripts for free. Not for free. You paid to be in mastermind. But hey, we digress. So when we get these blue ink words, you're going to use these things that you know worked for somebody. You know they work for me. and you know that they work for my partner. Now, these scripts were primarily written by me. We will be melding and improving as time goes on because we just wrote them for this release with the PI Marketing Hub. We will be melding as time goes on to giving you guys better, more refined script as time goes that fit multiple personalities, even to the point of saying like, hey, if you got a head person, here's a way to say it. If you got a heart person, here's a way to say it. If you got a gut person, here's a way to say it. But I want you to start with those. Learn them. Do your blue ink words. Here's the last thing that scripts failed people on. And actually, I'm gonna hit a couple of comments here. Manuel says, opposite happens too. You have to know when you've sold. Never drink a venti Starbucks before a sales meeting. Sometimes it's an easy yes, and you keep selling, and the buyer starts feeling uncomfortable. Yeah, that's a very big thing too, right? Don't overtalk. And actually, as a matter of fact, one of the things that you'll see in the scripts that I'm providing for you is in there. It says, hey, this is a like freaking day and a half worth of stories. Only say as much as you need to say until they are giving you buy signals, right? As soon as you've got yes signals, you set your compass to close and you don't move away from it. Here's, the seller knows, the buyer knows, you're there to talk about transacting their house, not to be their counselor. You turn into their counselor, but you're there to talk. There's no shame in moving back to the sale constantly. So that's a good point, man. I say man because I call people man. I'm not just like abbreviating your name because we're that buddy. I'm just going to call you man from now on. It's short for manual, right? Here's the last thing I want to talk about with scripting. The other thing that people get wrong with scripts, not just, if we just recap, item 1 is they think the script is a spell. It's not a spell. You have to adjust the script to your sales style. Number 2 is not understanding how to adjust the script to your sales style and not understanding how to adjust it to somebody else's style. The important part that I grazed on there but didn't really go into is that, hey, if you're going to hire a sales staff and you take our script and you meld it to be really good for you, and you're like, well, I got their script and I improved it because now our conversion rate's way better. I improved it to convert. Then you give it to your sales guy like, hey, I improved this script that I got from Creative Cashflow, and that's now it's way better. You're not going to see the results in that because what you don't realize that you've done is you've just improved it for your sales strategy, not theirs, right? So you got to know what they think as well as what your seller thinks so that you can adjust the script towards them and help them figure that out so that their numbers can be even better, right? So know thyself, know the person, know your counterpart. The last thing about the script that you need to know is I don't want you to just read the script. That's not built to be some pop-up, and this is how people do it, and I get it, but scripts are not really meant to be just some pop-up on your CRM that comes up that you just start reading through. What is the least amount of interest that you would be willing to take, Mr. Right? Like, it sounds like you're reading it. What you need to do with a script is you need to read it 1 trillion times. You need to read it 1 trillion times, and you need to say it to yourself in a mirror. And I'm going to tell you how I used to learn lines as a theater guy, and I encourage you to do the same thing here with your scripts that you get from me or from anybody else. Read it, stare at a mirror, and repeat that back to yourself. Now, it works even better if you can get somebody to help you with this. If you can get somebody to help you with this, it's even better. What you want to do is you want to hand the script to somebody and recite the words in the script and let them read through it with you. And when you miss a word, they correct you. When they correct you, you start from the start again. And you're going to do sections, okay? You're going to do maybe half a paragraph and get that right. Half a paragraph and get that right. Half a paragraph and get that right. Don't make the mistake of, if you do, let's say there's a 4-sentence paragraph. Don't do 2 sentences, memorize, and then 2 sentences memorize. I'll tell you 2 ways. If that is better for you, you can do it. The best way to do that, actually, I'll go that route because that's what people more naturally go this route. So you do your first 2 sentences, get it right. Then do the last 2 sentences, get it right. Then do the middle 2 sentences together to make sure that you've memorized that transition. Does that make sense? So you're going to memorize the first 2 sentences, get them right, working with somebody. Last 2 sentences, get it right, working with somebody. And then do the sentences that transition from your first section to your second section and get that right. And then do the whole paragraph together. Okay, that's how you learn a big monologue. Segments. Segment it out, learn each section, and then practice the transition between those two sections that you've learned until you can do the whole monologue on your own. Learn it that way. You need to know scripts like the back of your hand so that when you hear the cue words from your seller or buyer that are telling you that you're moving into a certain section of your script, that you're just able to recite that you're not reading it, that you're not looking for it. That's where people get scripting wrong as well. You've got to know the script in your soul, okay? So at PI Marketing Hub, you can go get those scripts. Again, I don't get any kind of financial compensation. We are just wanting to put this in front. I see Jason asking, is the script as good as the TT Brent Daniels scripts? I will put it this way. Christina works for and she runs the marketing for, like I said, 50 of the top 100 investors in the nation. Her average spend of a client is like $115,000 a month in marketing that she's running. So that lets you know the level. She's running for like iBuyers level folks. And she's taking their scripts and her staff is taking these calls and helping them through that and that kind of stuff. She told me when we handed her this script, she said, Grant, this is literally the best script I've ever seen in my entire life. She was like, she told me, she was like, my friends make fun of me for being overly pragmatic. I wouldn't even tell my kids that their drawings were good if they weren't good, because I will not. She said, this is the best script I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen something get put together in this way, so detailed, handling all of these situations as they are. Like, this is going to blow people's minds. So don't take it from me, take it from somebody else, like, right? But that's the truth of it. I'm very confident in this. I have a better conversion rate than pretty much any of the salespeople that I know. That's not to, I mean, again, I say I'm just pragmatic. I'm really just a conceited jerk. But the truth of the matter is I just have a really good conversion rate. I convert sales. And if you want to learn how to convert sales as well, heck, go get the scripts. Watch that video, because there's even another part of it. There's a 3-step sales process that we talk about in the scripting video that I'm also talking about in the Creative Cash Flow Academy with folks. That is very important to understanding the car goes into a tunnel, car goes through a window, car goes out of the tunnel mentality. It's very important to understand the skeleton of a script. One of our salespeople that we hired hadn't done sales before, but is doing a great job, and we think we're going to be able to build him up to where he needs to go. He listened to Ronnie do a sales call one time right when he got started, and here's the funny thing, is that literally, so Ronnie and I do sell in the same way as far as the skeleton goes, as far as the outline goes. Literally, the phone call dropped. Like, the audio dropped from the seller answering questions in the middle of the call, and it didn't matter, because we have our outline so well put together that even though the call literally dropped, Ronnie was able to still play the sale, and he still got the sale. And the seller on the other side still got to say what they needed to say, still got to feel the feelings they needed to feel. All of that kind of stuff, which is extremely important, happened even though the call dropped and we couldn't even hear the audio of it, because he followed our 3 steps that go into a sales process. So that's a very important part of it that you would get from that. So I hope that you guys take this to heart, even if you have other scripts. I'm not saying that we have the end all be all of scripts, right? I am saying that I'm very confident in the script that we have. I'm saying that the script that we've built has been told to me as the best script that anybody, or that they have ever seen. And they are people who are dealing with iBuyer level folks. But I want you to apply this information to any script that you ever deal with. If you already have scripts that maybe they're not converting as well as you would like them to, apply this. Okay? That's going to be very good for you. So I hope that this can go. Kip asked the question, where can we get the script? PIMarketingHub.com is where that's going to be listed out. Or if you are in our group as a mastermind level at the Creative Accelerator or the Creative Executive level, you will get the scripts, and then obviously also the one-on-one training from me on how to do that, and being in the mastermind as well, which is a good thing. And we've had some really powerful folks. Manuel has joined here in this last week or so, who he's a beast, and we've just got some really good folks in this group. So I do encourage you, if you are interested in joining up into a mastermind level and having some community around you of folks. I mean, we got people in there that own multiple car dealerships. One of our members owns 17 H&R Blocks. One of our members just joined a week or two, or actually it was last week. He actually got all the paperwork in and joined. Freaking Super Bowl champion linebacker, like literally, like not a bench player, like a second round draft pick, renewed contract, Green Bay Packer. We got successful people in this group who have all identified. And not to say that you have to be of that level. We got people who are, absolutely not doing things of that high a level. But everybody in our group identifies themselves by their excellence, right? And is going to work really hard to apply all of these pieces of knowledge and put them into play. And what you always want to do is you always want to be in a room of people who are more successful than you and get that community. And I'll tell you, this group of folks that we have in our mastermind is dedicated to helping each other out. It is an awesome group that I am so thrilled to be a part of, much less that we get to call it ours. It's just really cool. So CreativeCashFlow.com/memberships. If you want to join in for that, get on my calendar. Let's talk. Not everybody gets in. I actually had to turn somebody down yesterday. But it is a really good group to get into. So if you're ready to take your stuff up to that next level, if you know in your heart that you are defined by your own excellence and that when you decide to do something, you're going to get it done, you're the right type of person. Right? Apply. Let's see. It doesn't matter how many deals you've done. All of these people who joined, when they joined, had done 90% of them had done fewer than 5 or 10 deals. Okay. Now, 90% of those people, by their second quarter in the mastermind, are doing multiple deals a month. That's because if you identify by excellence and you do the things that we're talking about doing, it should work for you. So check it out. CreativeCashFlow.com/memberships. We've got about 8 more spots available. It is exclusive. We don't accept everybody. But if you are somebody who wants to get to that next level and you know you can do it, you're probably a good fit. So think about it and get on the calendar. Last thing I want to talk about before we leave is I landed a huge, if I can say that in Trumpism, it's huge. Isn't that his thing? Is it this? I don't know. It's one of these things. I'm not very good at impressions. I was never good at voices. Anyway, this episode, Grant Teach Me Something, is sponsored by Dominion Financial and will continue to be sponsored by Dominion Financial. If you'll notice, I've never taken a sponsor on. I'm very, very particular about who I'm willing to align my brand with. Because you can only control yourself. You cannot control third parties. So you've got to be very careful about who your name gets associated with. So you see that I don't associate my name with very many people. I'll associate with the Eddie Speeds, the Mitch Stevens, these, Scott Horns, these guys that I know are just beasts that I've seen firsthand, the Mike Powells, these guys that I've seen firsthand just killing it in ethical ways and just getting things done. But weekly, there's tons of people that want to work together. Anyway, long story long, Dominion Financial is the real deal. This was something that got brought to me through actually Christina Kraus, who is the real deal. And I'm blown away. They have a product right now that is just insane. So I am going to be telling people about this. Dominion Financial has a lending program that is asset based that I've never seen anything get anything close to. And we're going to have a link that Ika, if you could drop that, I actually just slacked it to you a second ago. It's going to be in the description. If you could also drop that into, we need to drop it in the description if it's not there. Also drop it into the comments of these lives so that people can get to it. Dude, it is a 30-year, fully amortized, fixed rate loan, entirely asset based at freaking 4.5%. Like, dude, what? Are you kidding me? Right? So I say it's entirely asset-based. All they care about on your side is a credit score. You have to have a 680 or above. They will lend into your LLC, and you can get up to $2 million in lending from them. And if you need to go above $2 million, all that means is that they'll go to their board and get that approved. You just might have to actually turn in tax statements or financials of some sort to show that. This is a fastball, guys. 70% loan to value cash out refinances. Okay. So if you've got a rental, this is for a rental thing. And you know how I feel about rentals. I'm not a huge rental part. This is a good enough deal that legitimately in my organization, we are looking at our deals to say, okay, what are we moving in to be the rental? Because it is stupid to not use this lending. 4.5% fixed rate. You can't buy the interest rate down and nobody's going to get a higher interest rate. It is 4.5, 30 years fixed. It's insane. You can't wrap it, but you can rent it. Worth having a rental at that rate. 70% LTV cash out refis is also incredible. You can do purchase money on it. It's a little bit more complicated on that side, but they do a really good calculation of how they're going to get their LTVs and stuff like that. And again, 680 minimum FICO score, 1 to 4 unit residential properties. You can be lent into as an LLC or as an individual, and there's no prepayment penalties. It's ridiculous. 2% origination, 70% LTV cash out, 30-year term, 30-year AM, 4.5% interest rate. So definitely check that out. Click on the link that's in the comments. Click on the link that's in the description. If you've got a deal, if you've got a house that you might want to do a cash out refi on, if you've got a house that you might want to do rental on, check these guys out. Get that going there. That's going to be really good for you. So guys, I hope you learned a lot about scripting today, right? There's way more to come. There's way more into sales than people really realize. Sales are very specific, right? It is very psychologically based, and it is not a magic incantation. You're not going to say, well, if I was to close on your house by Friday, what price would you give me? You pull the sword out of the stone, and like the freaking women roll up with bikinis and somebody hands you the keys to the yacht. This is not a magic incantation. It is a structure for you to follow, applying your own information, your own knowledge of psychology and sales to get to a position where you know that you're going to have the best chance of getting to yes. My name's Grant Kemp. I'm from CreativeCashFlow.com. I hope you guys really enjoyed today's episode. Let us know how you felt about it. Share it if you think that other people could get some use from it. We're going to be doing Grant Teach Me Something every Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. Central. Happy to work with you guys. If you want to work with me on a larger level, we JV on deals. If you're looking to get a deal done and you might not have the resources or the knowledge or the money or whatever that might be, CreativeCashFlow.com/JV with me. You can submit it there. My business partner, Ronnie, will call you back within 24 hours. We buy anywhere in the nation. So look forward to working with you. We'll see you next week.